Welcome back everyone. As most of you guys know, the OnePlus 8T just came out, and what better time to do a comparison between this phone and its predecessor in a way that came out last year, the OnePlus 7T. Now, both these phones in a way could be, considered predecessors, successors to one another, even though we had that mid-tier OnePlus 8T or that mid-year release of the OnePlus 8 and 8T and the 8 Pro earlier this year. So let's go and see how both these compare. Now, pricing wise, the OnePlus 8T costs less than $1,000. It costs that, $799 price tag. The OnePlus 7T costs $399 on Amazon right now. So you can pick up both these for the cheapest prices that I find in the description below. You can get them from there and help support the channel at the same time. Now, starting off with the front panels of both, the OnePlus 7T has a 6.55 inch fluid AMOLED display. It's a 1080p panel, and it's a really good looking panel. I've said this before and I'll say it again. The OnePlus 7T has a very underrated screen, and I think for the most part, whenever I do anything with it, whenever I look at it, it is a really, really good panel. And I can't have enough words to say it. I can try to phrase it other ways, but that's really it. The best thing about the screen is that it is that 90 Hz refresh rate, which that in and of itself is a really, really cool thing. We've seen time and time again how some phones, they have like 60 Hz and they're like 1440p and ginormous, but when you have that 90 Hz refresh rate, it does add a lot more character, in my opinion, to the screen itself, which is really cool. Now, the OnePlus 8T, on the other hand, has that same exact size screen, that 6.55 inch fluid AMOLED display. This one is also 1080p, but it takes a little bit of a different approach. You have that hole punch display in the top left corner like we've seen before, but you also have a 120 Hz refresh rate on this panel, which I think is really cool. It's definitely an upgrade from 90 Hz. Is it an important thing? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. If you're coming from a phone like a OnePlus 6T or an iPhone 6S or something, then going to a phone like this, either the 7T or the 8T, you are genuinely going to be surprised of how well that screen is. But I think even going from 60 to 90 Hz is a bigger jump than going from 90 to 120. But that 120 Hz on the 8T is far better than the 7T, and I'll give it that. So in terms of the front panel, I think the 8T definitely looks better, and I think everyone would agree with that. But I still think the OnePlus 7T, for the most part, still looks extremely clean as well. On the bottom, they have USB Type-C ports on both, and on the back they have glass backs on both, and a little bit of a different setup in the cameras, which I'll get into in a second. The OnePlus 8T has that frosted glass back, which I really like. The OnePlus 7T has a standard type of glass back to it, which I like too. There's really nothing to hate on it. I think it looks really, really good. There's nothing to complain. It's just really preference whether you like that type of glass back or you like the frosted glass back. Me personally, I'm kind of a fan of the frosted glass back on the 8T, but both of them will suit my style. I really don't care too much, to be honest. Now, with those camera setups, on the other hand, this is where things kind of take a little bit of a different approach, but surprisingly, there are still a lot of similarities, which is really interesting, and there's also quite a few differences that may be a downside on the OnePlus 8T. Now, the 7T has a 48 megapixel wide-angle lens, a 12 megapixel telephoto lens, and then a 16 megapixel ultra-wide sensor, where the OnePlus 8T has pretty much the same 48 megapixel wide-angle lens. They have a 16 megapixel ultra-wide sensor, so pretty much the same sensors there, but it takes away that telephoto lens and adds a 5 megapixel macro lens, and then a 2 megapixel depth sensor, and I find that to be kind of a confusing thing. I've said this before and I'll say it again. I always would rather prefer an ultra-wide sensor over a telephoto lens, but I would rather have a telephoto lens than a macro and depth sensor combined, in my opinion. They're not useless, but it's just like, they're just there for show. I don't know how many people are going to use those sensors all that often. Maybe they add a little bit of more whatever to a photo, but with the OnePlus 7T, I think those photos look good, and I just think the functionality when it comes down to the OnePlus 7T, it just adds that much more functionality, like I stated before. I just think with a phone like the OnePlus 8T, it's a better quality. Maybe you can still do 4K at 60 on both phones, but I would just say with the OnePlus 8T, with that lack of telephoto lens, it's just kind of weird. It's like, why would you bring it into one generation of a phone a year ago and then take it away this time? Like I said, the telephoto lens, I would rather have that than a macro and depth lens, especially a depth lens. I don't even know. It's a 2 megapixel depth lens. Visually, it looks like a better phone because there's more camera sensors, but that's not necessarily always the case. Now, I'll still give the quality to the OnePlus 8T. I think the quality of that phone is probably better overall, and like I said before, that's a huge asset for it. With the OnePlus 7T, Whether it is or not, I mean, that's one thing you're going to have to consider, but I'll probably tell you when it comes down to the camera sensors on both, the OnePlus 7T has more functionality with that telephoto lens, but the OnePlus 8T gives the better quality photos for sure. So that's kind of how I'd sum it up. I know it's kind of confusing and it's a very, very weird dynamic that they have there, but that's pretty much how I would sum it up in this specific case. Now moving on to the software side of things, the OnePlus 7T has the Android 10 update on it. The OnePlus 8T has that Android 11 update on it. And, eventually the Android 11 update, Oxygen OS 11, is going to come out for the OnePlus 7T. So I'm totally okay with that. I literally cannot wait for that to happen. And at some point, the OnePlus 8, but definitely when it comes down to the software side of things, the OnePlus 8T is generally going to last at least 1 year longer than the OnePlus 7T. It's definitely not a deal breaker. It's not anything that's going to, change your religion or anything. But I'll definitely say the OnePlus 8T is definitely going to be the winner here. Now, I did a little bit of a speed comparison, and I'll go ahead and show that now. But I'll tell you the specs first. The OnePlus 7T had a Qualcomm Snapdragon 855 Plus chipset, an octa-core CPU, an Adreno 640 GPU, and 8 gigs of RAM on both models, where the OnePlus 8T, on the other hand, has that Qualcomm Snapdragon 865 chipset, octa-core CPU, an Adreno 650 GPU, and 8 gigs of RAM on that base model, and then 12 gigs of RAM on that top tier model. So here's the speed comparison. Hopefully you enjoy it. Alright everyone, let's get into the speed comparison you guys already know. Let me go and close out of all these other apps. So let's go and start loading them up. Let's do phone call, 3, 2, 1. Okay, about the same. Message, let's just do Play Store, 3, 2, 1. And kind of the same, but the OnePlus 7T is on the right, the OnePlus 8T is on the left. I probably should have said that first. Now scrolling through, you can see they're about the same. Not a ginormous difference. I think the OnePlus 8T though is way smoother than the OnePlus 7T though, for in that specific case. Now as usual, I have a bunch of these third-party apps that we can get into. So Temple Run 2, 3, 2, 1. And the OnePlus 8T is looking to be a lot smoother than and just faster than the OnePlus 7T. 7T didn't take its time. It's still a fast phone, but it was definitely slower than the OnePlus 8T. Let's get into some gameplay. I doubt it's going to be any different. And I think I do have the 90 Hz refresh enabled on the OnePlus 7T as well, which for gaming, it doesn't really matter. Now, gaming-wise, for this game, it doesn't matter. It's a small game. Snake vs. Block, 3, 2, 1. And hopefully I don't have a bunch of pop-ups that come up. Okay, both were about the same. I think the OnePlus 8T was slightly faster. Gameplay-wise, as stated before, about the same, not a ginormous difference as you guys can see. Let's go in. I would try Fruit Ninja, but I have some issues with it. Let's do Stack, 3, 2, 1. And the OnePlus 8T, well, we did have a little pop-up here, and that's very unfortunate. We still had the ad pop-up, which was a little bit later. Snapchat 3, 2, 1. I've always had those issues. This game was, or that app was pretty much the same. Twitter, 3, 2, 1. OnePlus 7T was actually faster there. That was very surprising. Let's do Paper IO 2, 3, 2, 1. Hopefully I don't have 30 pop-ups on the 7T again. And there we go. Let's load up a game and see if one is way faster. Now this game isn't super intensive, but I am able to kind of see that the OnePlus 7T is a little bit not as smooth as the OnePlus 8T. Now I'm not going to say the OnePlus 8T is way smoother, but I'm kind of starting to see like slight glitches, I think, on the OnePlus 7T. Not glitches, but just smoothness factor on the OnePlus 8T. Netflix 3, 2, 1. 7T again is faster. That's very surprising. I wasn't expecting this. Take you 3, 2, 1. And OnePlus 8T is faster. 7T a little bit behind. Not a ginormous difference like I stated before, but just a slight one as you can see. Gameplay wise, as stated before, they're going to be almost identical. BOFA 3, 2, 1. Okay, OnePlus 8T is faster. 7T a little bit slower. Crossy Road 3, 2, 1. I think I'm going to have a glitch on here, or maybe on both. Okay, so I do have a glitch on here. I had to type in my name. Okay, whatever. Quizlet 3, 2, 1. AT far faster. Instagram 3, 2, 1. AT I think is a little bit faster. And we can try ending it off with Real Racing 3, 3, 2, 1. I've had horrible engagement with the AT and 7T and all these other phones. It keeps having to re-download it, which I don't know why. As you can see, another case. Makes absolutely no sense to me, but I guess we'll just kind of let that one slide. Let's go ahead and see if I have any other apps that we can go test, but I think I've already pretty much made up my mind. We tried Dune 3, 2, 1. Now this is a tremendous game. They're not paying me to say it, but and they were almost identical. Now if I can go ahead and click on the display and start up a game of some sort. Now RAM management wise, let me go ahead and get into the RAM management side and just go ahead and see what's going on with it. So starting to all the way to the back. This one, okay, about the same. Definitely having a harder time, I think, on the ET swiping it up. but speed-wise of scrolling through, you can see they're kind of the same here too. The Play Store always just ends up going away for some reason, which is very weird. So Temple Run 2, okay, both were kind of the same there as well. Scrolling back all the way in the beginning once more. Snake versus Blocks, okay, both of them were about the same there too. Let's scroll back again. Into this one, okay, they both were good too. I mean, I could probably keep going and maybe there'll be some point where the OnePlus 8T would glitch up or the OnePlus 7T would glitch up, but I could probably tell you, in all honesty, the 8T I think is more faster than not, but I'm still surprised because the 7T was still an extremely fast device and sometimes beating the 8T. So I don't really know. I mean, if you have a 7T, I would definitely not go to an 8T for performance just based off this. But I think over time, maybe the 8T will end up being faster. I don't know. But I think there were some times the 7T definitely held down its own. There were some times where there was a big difference in performance. Sometimes there wasn't. And I'll probably tell you if you have a OnePlus 7T, I would definitely recommend keeping it. You're not going to feel like you have a way slower device or anything like that. RAM management is looking to be about the same too, even though you have more RAM on the 8T. So probably when it comes down to it, I think the OnePlus 7T is a great phone, and I think it's still fast. The 8T is probably the faster one, but the 7T definitely held down its own in the speed comparison. So let's go and get on with the rest of this review. Now that we're back, let's go and hit on the battery life. Now the OnePlus 7T has a 3800 mAh battery, where the OnePlus 8T has a 4500 mAh battery. So a little bit of a difference again, and even though you have a higher refresh rate on the OnePlus 8T, I would still give that the benefit of the doubt of having the better battery life. Like I've said time and time again, bigger batteries are always better, and more times than not that necessarily is the case. And in this case, I'll definitely tell you the OnePlus 8T has a better battery life, but I still think the OnePlus 7T's battery life is really good for the most part too. As I've said before, I mean, I think this phone is a really good phone. There's really not that much to hate on, and I could say the same thing with the OnePlus 7T. That is a tremendous phone too, and there's very little to hate on. So, I mean, that kind of sums it up there. And to kind of answer the question in some of this video, should you pick up the OnePlus 8T? Should you pick up the OnePlus 7T? Should you upgrade from your 7T to the 8T? Let me break it down like this. First of all, some pros for the OnePlus 7T. It's a great phone. I think the build quality is still top tier. It feels like a very premium phone. The screen of it is really, really nice. It's the same size as the 8T. It pretty much has the same functionality as the 8T screen as well, fingerprint sensor in the display and all that. You just have a higher refresh rate on the OnePlus 8T, and you also have less bezel and the hole punch display, which is really cool. You have a great camera. You have a telephoto lens on that camera as well. Great build quality. I know I said that before. Great performance. There's really not that much to hate on it, but the OnePlus 8T, I think, is the better phone because it is newer, but it's also more expensive, and that's something you're going to have to keep in mind. You're paying more for a better phone, which is expected. Is that something you want to do? That's a question you're going to have to ask yourself. You're getting a better display on the OnePlus 8T, a better camera, kind of, I guess, but not really. I think a better build quality on the OnePlus 8T. It feels really good in the hand. You're getting better performance. If you get the top tier model of the OnePlus 8T, you're going to be getting 4 GB more of RAM than the top tier model of the OnePlus 7T. Better battery life, that's another huge thing. And I mean, that's enough to kind of even just end it there. I mean, that's a lot of stuff for the OnePlus 8T. But like I said before, if you have a OnePlus 7T, that's still good enough for a lot of people. There's, like I said, not that much to complain about. And when it comes down to that, I don't know which one I would rather pick up. Maybe the OnePlus 8T because it's the better one. But price per dollar standpoint, the 7T is still a great pickup for sure. So that really pretty much covers it up for the most part. If you guys have any other questions or anything, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that'll mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. Every single subscriber that we get really does count, so it means so much if you guys could hit that. Also check out the other links down in the description as well. My Twitter, my Instagram, my other channels. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.